G'day legends. In this video, we're going to take a look at probably one of the most difficult instruments to mix, and I'm talking about the acoustic guitar. It is such a complex instrument, and from acoustic guitar to acoustic guitar, they all sound really different. Depending on your mic placement, it's going to sound really different. There's just so many variables that it's really hard to come up with a formula as to how to mix acoustic guitar. There's no one EQ, there's no one compressor that fits all, but what we're going to try and do is think about the way that we're going to approach mixing an acoustic guitar, where we really come into it with a mindset of what we want to achieve with our acoustic guitar in the mix. So if we can think about what we want to hear, how we want it to sound in the mix, before we start doing anything else, we can really come up with an image in our head of the sound that we're chasing. That way we can go forward and process it and choose the right plugins or hardware to achieve the goal. So I've got this pop punk, pop rock kind of track here, and there's this breakdown chorus where the acoustic guitar and vocals take over and everything else drops out. Now I'm going to play you the processed and then the unprocessed acoustic guitar for this section, and then I'm going to run you through my thought processing as to how I went about mixing this to get it to sound the way that I wanted it to.
But I unravel in my sleep. I sold my heart, 'cause living lonely don't come.
So you can hear the unprocessed sound is not bad at all. It's quite a nice acoustic guitar sound, but you can hear with the processing, it's really driving and it's pushing the track along still, which is what I want. I didn't want it to drop away so much that it was just this really nice, pretty acoustic guitar section. I wanted to keep the energy there, have that guitar sound. It's like someone who's kind of digging into it a little bit. And if we have a listen to this next little section, when everything starts to build up, the unprocessed guitar just gets lost in the mix, whereas our processed guitar still cuts through and is still driving.
Only don't come cheap. The devil's smile only broadens when he sees I've stayed a while.
So to me, I really dig that, and I think that's really cool. So let's take a look at the processing now. Okay, so you can see we've got two acoustic guitars panned left and right. So we double track the acoustic so we could get a nice stereo image. I tracked the acoustics with two mics. We did a space pair stereo configuration, but in the end I ended up just taking one of those mics from each of the takes and panning them out left and right. So we got that nice big wide double tracked effect without getting any kind of weird phasey stuff going on. Now they're not hard pan, it's just 40 to the left and 40 to the right. Now let's take this from the top down. The plugins on both of these are identical, so we'll just go through one side because they're the same. So have a quick listen to the guitar. So I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a whistle frequency in the acoustic guitar that's really annoying. So that's what our first plugin is going to deal with. We just have a Logic EQ, and we're doing a deep cut at 2,420 Hertz. Let me bypass this off and on so you can hear what I'm talking about. So that's all my ears could hear when I listened to the acoustic guitar, was like just this like whistly frequency in those upper mids, which I found really distracting. So notching that out cleaned the guitar up nicely for me to start with. So the next plugin in the chain is the SSL 4000E by Brainworks. Just an SSL style channel strip. You could use any channel strip to do this. And I'm only using the filters and the EQ. Now have a listen to what this is doing. So it's really cleaning up our sound. So we're doing a big cut at 733 Hertz. This is cleaning up a lot of the muddiness and that sort of woolly, warm kind of sound in the guitar. Like, I don't want this to sound really warm. I want the guitar to have some brightness to it and to cut. So dealing with that is definitely helping. Have a listen to what it sounds like when we boost this up. So it really takes the warmth out of the guitar and focuses our attention on the higher frequencies and the detail of the guitar. So then I've done a boost from 2.5K with a shelf. So just kind of adding some presence to the top end of the guitar. So that's just a 2 dB boost. Just gives it a little bit more edge, which I like the sound of. But then we are cutting back at around 6K. This is where the guitar gets a little kind of harsh sounding, sort of just unwanted high frequency sounds that aren't really nice. So even though we're brightening up the guitar, then we're kind of pulling back on these harsher frequencies that are being revealed now. And then we have a high pass filter up to 175 Hertz. This is a pretty gentle roll off on this. So you can really push this up and it takes a while before you can really start to hear the effects. So I just used my ears until I thought that sounded good, getting rid of a bit of the rumble in the low end of the acoustic. So it's just rolling out that subby low end that we don't really need a lot of. Then we have a low pass filter up to 14K. So it's pretty subtle, but it is rolling off those super high frequencies, and it's just gonna make the guitar a little bit smoother sounding, especially because we have boosted some highs as well, just compensating for that extra airy top end that we've added. So at the moment, you're probably like, hey, why aren't you just doing this all on the bus? Why aren't you processing these both together? And that's because our next plugin is our compressor, and then our next plugin after that is a bit of multi-band compression. And I just want to have these on their own channels. I don't want to be diving into dual mono and fiddling around with that. This is just a lot easier to deal with. When I was EQing the guitar, I'm pretty sure I did it on the bus, and then I just moved it over onto our channels and changed it to a mono plugin. Okay, so our next plugin is the U80 LA3A. Now, I love the sound of the 3A on acoustic guitars. I used to have a pair of the Audioscapes clone of what the 3A is, and it sounded so good on the acoustic guitars. It was just the best compressor on acoustics. Really can't rave about it enough. But the U80 plugin does sound pretty good as well. You can sort of squash the acoustic guitar in a really nice way where you can tell it's compressed, but you don't care because it sounds good. So have a listen to what it sounds like. He has adding that nice bit of spank to the acoustic guitar. You can really hear the compression working, but it sounds really cool. And it is evening out the performance a bit as well. It's keeping it really present. We don't really get these big accents and the guitar falls back. It's not super dynamic anymore. It's sort of just very consistent and it sounds more energetic now. So this is really doing a lot. So the next plugin we have is to help smooth out some of these sort of spanky moments as well. Because while I do like them, occasionally there are some hits that have a little bit too much tang to them. And so we have Pro MB, and we just have a high shelf and a low shelf. So we'll talk about the high shelf first. This one is just a fast attack, fast release, high shelf compressor. And so we're going from 2.8K, and anything super aggressive gets ducked down. So check this out. So it's just grabbing those hard-hitting transients and just softening them a little bit. And on our low shelf, I'm just trying to control the low end of the acoustic guitar here. I don't want it to get too bassy and subby sounding. I want to keep this sort of in check because every now and then the low end was kind of blooming a little too much. Got a 4.5 dB range here of compression, and we're going from 132 Hertz down. This is kind of where all the low end of the acoustic guitar is. Fairly fast attack, reasonably fast release. Just want to kind of make sure it's catching things when needed. So you can see it's just controlling those real low frequencies there. So that's just a little bit of cleanup. And then we have a little bit of processing then on our bus. So both of these guitars being sent to a bus over here. And on that is just a little bit of EQ. So just some changes I made to get this to sit in the mix a little bit better. There's a couple of resonances that were just annoying me. It's one of those things where the acoustic guitar is playing some chords, but there's a couple of notes that stay constant throughout. So you end up with these droning frequencies. Sometimes your ears can overthink this stuff a little bit too. Like the longer you concentrate on a sound, the more you start to just hear frequencies and you want to like notch things away. But it's not necessarily always important, but it did keep jumping out at me. Like I didn't notch this stuff straight away, but I kept hearing it in the mix. And so I decided, yeah, this is something I want to deal with. And so kind of like two frequencies in the mid-range, which were kind of poking out to me a little bit. And I only cut them about 3 dBs. I didn't want to go too crazy with this. I didn't want to like notch them out because they are still part of the guitar sound. They are adding harmony to the guitar. So you want to be careful when you're notching stuff. You don't want to go crazy and notch heaps of frequencies out because then you end up sucking the life out of a sound. It's almost like the sound of feedback, like 1K kind of thing, 925 hertz. It was just jumping out at me. Just cut it around 3-4 dBs and just tucked it back in a little bit. And then again at 565 hertz. So again, not removing it, just tucking it back in a little bit. Just be careful if you do notch some frequencies. Don't go too crazy with it. But if there is something like a whistle frequency like that first one we had up here and you just want to get rid of it, then yeah, chop it away. But don't do too much of that stuff. So now after we've added our compression to the EQ that we've already done, so we've done a bit of EQ before compression, now I'm sort of feeling like I just want to tuck back some of these upper mids, and we're kind of cutting 2 dBs at 1.8K. Just a yucky, nasally kind of sound in the guitar. And, you know, that's sort of poked out more because we have cut some of those lower mids away and it's not sounding as warm and cozy anymore. This is sort of becoming a bit more apparent. So just a little cut there with a wideish shape bell. Just sort of tucks it back in, but we're not totally removing it. We're just making it less apparent. And then a 1.8 dB cut with a high shelf at 8K. So just, again, tucking down our high frequencies. Just taking a little bit of edge off. And so we're left with a little bit more of a focus between 3 to 8K. This is where our high frequency focus is now. Okay, so overall, like that's sounding pretty nice now. Acoustic guitar's got a lot of attitude. This is what it sounded like raw. Yeah, it sounds a lot bigger, a lot more present, which is cool. And now our final piece of the puzzle here, this is just giving our guitar that little bit of extra edge, and this is the SSL saturator. So I've been really vibing on this plugin a lot lately, actually. Loving it on vocals if I want to add a little bit of grit. Loving it on drums if you want to beef them up a bit. On acoustic guitar if you want to add a bit of extra flavor. Like, it's pretty versatile. You can be really subtle with it or you can really crunch things up. But overall, it just makes things sound better. And this isn't like a sales pitch. I'm not affiliated with SSL or anything like that. You know, if they wanted to ever send a piece of hardware over here for me to review, I wouldn't say no to that. Definitely got my eye on that SSL Bus Plus. So let's have a listen to what it's doing on the acoustic guitar. How cool is that? It adds this extra bit of glue and also a tiny element of drive to the acoustic. So it's taking away that super clean acoustic guitar sound and it's giving it some attitude. And I love that. I think that's kind of like the missing piece of that puzzle. Like, everything works together because of this on the end. It sort of just smooths the whole thing out in a really nice way. just drives it so nicely. So that's how the guitar stays so present and glued in that section, and we don't lose the energy, because beforehand we got the drums, the electric guitar, the bass, everything's punching along. And even though we're dropping back to the acoustic guitar, I don't want it to sound weak and lifeless. I want it to keep that kind of rock, pop punk kind of energy going, but through the acoustic guitar.
I've come so far, but I unravel in my sleep. I sold my heart.
I think that sounds so good. When you compare it to the raw sound one more time.
I've come so far, but I unravel in my sleep. I sold my heart.
So you can hear it's a massive difference. And like I said, that raw sound is definitely not bad, and you could definitely use that in this mix. But for me, that's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear the acoustic guitar carry the energy through. So hopefully this gives you a couple of ideas. If you want an acoustic guitar that really drives in a mix, this could be an approach that you could take. Obviously the EQ is going to be a little bit different, and you may not need to notch frequencies. It just depends if you can hear any of those issues within your track. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and make sure you visit my website, check out my range of drum samples and mix courses. Grabbing any of those is a massive support for the time that goes into making videos like this. If you're interested in knowing how to save time and get a smoother session running, then check out this next video coming up where I'm going to show you how to build the perfect mix template.